which is where we have been talking about. We're going to address the concerns of mental health today. We know that God has charged us to be good stewards over what He has given us. And so, we want to make sure that we are healthy financially, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So there are several things that we should definitely pay attention to. And in order to make sure that we are serving you in the right way, I've asked someone who has been a rock for many people, who is a licensed professional clinical counselor. And she is the lead person. I don't know, we want to say CEO. I don't know how we would classify you, my sister, but she has a company called Thriving Family Counseling LLC. And so I am excited to welcome to the broadcast. And on top of that, she's an elder of the gospel as well. So, you're not only getting professional advice, but also advice that's going to also really correspond with God's truths as well. So it is my pleasure to welcome Marshawna Starr Hoyte. How are you, sister?
Thank you so much. I am doing wonderful, even amidst all of this craziness, I'll call it, and this pandemic. I'm doing really good. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Again, I consider it a pleasure and an honor that you are taking time to even speak with our listening audience. So let's just dive right on in. So we were talking about mental health. This is your chosen profession. Maybe one day we'll have you back on as well to kind of share your story and your testimony, because those who don't know you personally don't realize you have a extremely powerful testimony that I believe would be an encouragement to people as well. But today we want to definitely address the need of mental health. So my first question would be, when we talk about mental health, what exactly is that, so that people can understand why it's so important that we address it?
Sure. So mental health, when you think about that, you're really talking about the mind, and that includes, our thoughts, our thinking patterns, and things like that. And we definitely want to make sure that we have healthy mental health, which means that we are in balance. Our thoughts are balanced, our thoughts are healthy, because our thoughts fuel our behavior. And so I'm just one of those therapists that heavily focus on what we're thinking, because that impacts the entire rest of your life. So just making sure that area of our lives, our brain, our psyche, is balanced.
Great. So another question I have for you is that, okay, so we are in such uncharted territories right now with this COVID-19 pandemic, as you just mentioned. Do you have any suggestions for people who are having a difficult time dealing with this social isolation that we have to do right now? Because they're basically saying things are really not going to go back to normal the way it was until there's a vaccine. So knowing that it's going to take time for that to come about, so we're going to experience a new normal for quite a while. What would you say to people who aren't able to get that kind of social interaction that they're accustomed to, who are kind of wired that way, where they kind of draw from a place of strength when they have that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I actually have several clients that are dealing with this, particularly in the areas of anxiety and depression. I find are being two of the main things that are being challenged right now, because everyone is trying to adjust to kind of this new normal that we're dealing with. So I'm going to give you a few things that I've kind of been sharing with people. And one of the key things, believe it or not, is to stay active. And I know that kind of sounds counterproductive, because we are social distancing and those kinds of things, but we have to not forget that our physical and mental health are intertwined in a sense. And so when we are active, then it releases our feel-good chemicals in our brain, so to speak. And so you can do things at home to stay active, like practicing yoga, Tai Chi yoga, and things like that, or whatever kind you prefer. And you can do that by going on YouTube and looking up videos and doing yoga with those videos. That's a great way to keep your mind focused and get yourself centered and grounded. But you're, of course, at home and still holding true to the guidelines that have been set in place. You also can still go for walks. We are not mandated to actually stay in the house and absolutely closed off. We can go on walks at parks, but you want to make sure that you have your mask on. You want to make sure you have gloves on, things like that, and still keep a clear distance from other individuals. You know, you can work in the yard, you can walk around in your yard if it's big enough, or in your neighborhood. Just again, making sure you keep true to those guidelines that have been set. So I would say that is a big one there. A second thing is really to keep yourself on a schedule. That kind of brings a sense of normalcy in a time when we are dealing with things that are not our norm. And so if you have a consistent schedule every day, then that can really help. And then you can maybe jot down kind of how your day is going and those kinds of things. Also, keeping a schedule makes us feel like we're being not only productive, but we're being proactive too about the situation, and gives us kind of a sense of calm. It really does calm anxiety, and it can help with depression. And that when you are kind of keeping this schedule, you kind of have a check-off list, you know. And many of us as human beings like the check-off list. Our brain also likes that, and it makes us feel good. It makes us feel confident and good about ourselves, and that also can help kind of deter some of those depressive symptoms that someone may be feeling. I'm also going to encourage taking breaks from watching the news or listening to these different stories and things.
I am so glad you said
yourself. Yes, you have to know yourself. And so, you know, if you're a person that really gets tense about, you know, what you're watching and those kinds of things, then you really want to create some healthy boundaries around that and say, okay, I can't, you know, watch this today, or, you know, I need to cut myself off after 5 or 10 minutes, just to kind of keep yourself aware, but not where you begin to internalize things, and then that impact you when it comes to your mental health. So if you need to take a break, please do so. And then also take care of your body, you know, during this time. Maintain your vitamin regimen. If you don't have one, get one. Now's a good time where I believe that, you know, we're refocusing, we're resetting, we're restarting. We are putting together some different rituals and things at home, and taking care of self is a great discipline to dive into right now, including taking your vitamins, getting plenty of sleep. Make sure you're not getting too much sleep, though, because we want to make sure you're not just sleeping the day away, right? But making sure you're getting the right amount of sleep, and then just avoiding those external things like a lot of alcohol and things like that. These things are common sense, but sometimes when we have time on our hands, some people tend to dive into those, and we want to make sure that's not happening. I also encourage.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have one important question that I wanted to ask you before our time does end today, which is you went back and said, you know, if there are, you know, sometimes you might need to take a break from watching the news and different things like that, so you're not feeding your head. This particular question is something that is not going to be a short answer, but I'll ask you, you know, to give us probably the Reader's Digest version as we begin to bring this to a close. Because I was like, I'm sitting here looking at the clock, and I'm like, my goodness, we have been talking like we're in a session. But in any event, so I want to encourage the listeners also to know we realize we're a music show, and we're going to, play some more music here in a little bit. But this is so important, which is why we're giving time to it. But so I was going to say something that came to my mind, because I know that there are many people who have struggled with this. And I wanted to see what type of answer you would give, especially in this type of scenario. One of the realities of our world is that it's so easily accessible to view things that are not healthy for your mindset. What I mean by that is, like, I was watching a Trevor Noah skit, and he had one of his staff basically kind of doing a thing where he was acting like he was in a confessional virtually, and was talking about he was watching porn because he missed people so much and things like that. And I was like, okay, as silly as it was, I was like, you know what? There's a tremendous element of truth to that people may find themselves in some behaviors that could become addictive and habitual. So my question would be, how can we make sure that we don't fall into that temptation and that trap from, since not everybody who's listening may not necessarily be a believer. So I'm wondering, is there an answer from a believer perspective, and is there an answer from a practical perspective as well? And I know that because of how long our conversation is going, this is going to have to kind of be the last thing that we think about today. But the great thing that I want to let our listening audience know is that you've agreed to share some more with us for the rest of the month. So this is not the last time. And the other thing is, we're going to also, with your permission, put this up on our YouTube channel as well, so that people can hear this information. Are you okay with us doing that? Okay.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
Okay, great.
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely would say, how do we steer ourselves, or how can someone steer themselves away from these things that could be tempting? I would say to remember this key thing, okay? And this can be both spiritual or practical in application, is that if you remember, whatever you feed will grow. And so, you kind of have to think about that. If you're watching pornography, you're going to feed that, and it will grow. It's not going to just stop right there. And the same thing with positive things that you're feeding yourself. If you feed it, it will grow. And so kind of look for alternatives that are healthy, and do those. That is a very short, succinct response to that. And then, of course, make sure that you're spending time, for my believers, make sure you are spending time in prayer and with God, in connection with Him, and He will help you. He will help guide you in the direction that you need to go there.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for your time today. I think you've given us some invaluable information today. And so if anyone is interested in finding out more information about Marshawna Starr Hoyte, it's so different for me to address you by your official name.
Right.
Her husband and I have been very long time friends, so she's family. So but she is, again, a licensed professional clinical counselor. The name of her business is Thriving Family Counseling, and if you would like to find out more information, you can visit thrivingfamiliescounseling.com. Again, that is Thriving Families Counseling.